Hey, YouTubers, if you're in the LA or Southern California area over the holidays, Liz, Grace, Kristin, and I are talking about putting a meet and greet together and, of course, to talk about astrology. Right now, we just need indications of interest. So if you are going to be in the LA area December 29th in the afternoon and would like to connect, send me an email, funastrologypodcast@gmail.com, and we'll keep you informed of all the details. It's Hump Day on the Fun Astrology Podcast, Wednesday, November 20th. Thomas Miller, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to dive into a deep old Plutonian subject today. I think that we should. If you're a regular listener to this, and I had a compliment from somebody just yesterday talking about the post-election comments that we had around here and how much they appreciated just framing everything up in as positive of a light as we can. And I so greatly appreciated that. I just see a separation of these timelines and everything fits into that context. And until it doesn't work, I am going to stay with it, and we're going to stay with it again today in another dark subject that we're going to look at in a favorable light. We might as well get it in now while the sun is in its last day of Scorpio. Before we jump into that, one quick aspect up in the sky. The moon moves into Leo at 8:50 this morning Eastern. Now that brings fire to Lunar. And then we move the sun into fire tomorrow. And then you look at what happened yesterday with Pluto moving into Aquarius, and you read the headlines today, which I know is a dangerous thing to do, but I do believe we need to stay aware. I read headlines, not stories. That's what I do. I glance the headlines. I really fast glance the headlines. And it's just like, oh, so here's kind of the pulse of what's going on right now. And in my mind, there's always the drumbeat of the sky. What's going on up there that's reflecting down here? We know that Pluto entered Aquarius yesterday. Now we see this clue that both of our luminaries are entering fire today and tomorrow. And we know that Neptune is in the latter degrees of Pisces, which has a lot to do with lies and deceptions and illusions and mystique and mystery and all of this. And then we see that these positions in the sky line up with what's going on down here. So let's look at this in some context, because we have two players here that are super significant to what's going on. Pluto, sitting in its strongest position in 20 years, the planet that rules everything nuclear, moving into the sign of the masses, and the modern-day ruler of that sign, Uranus, which represents surprises, shock, and awe sometimes. Are there any questions about astrology now? I mean, this could not be more descriptive. So I went back and thought about one thing. Uranus, let's talk about the ruler of Aquarius. So yesterday, Pluto moved into Aquarius. Well, that means it's in Uranus's sign. Uranus, the planet that wobbles and sits sideways in the sky, was discovered in 1781. Now, Pluto entered Aquarius. You can't make this stuff up, in 1777 and finally in 1778, 3 years before. When did the French Revolution start? 1789. So there was Uranus. Surprise! I'm on the scene. Pluto rolls into Aquarius, the American Revolution ends, and a few years later the French Revolution begins. And obviously, if you want to look back at history of what happened yesterday, the last time Pluto moved into Aquarius, that was it. Right there. That's the last one we have to look back to. Well, some of you may remember when the Berlin Wall fell. I remember it clearly. I was in Russia 3 years later doing a video project. The Berlin Wall, the trip of the domino, if you will, of the fall of communism took place in 1989. Uranus was in early Capricorn, 3 degrees. Pluto was in Scorpio, middle of the sign, 15 degrees. That puts it in a sign-based cooperative sextile. An old, oppressive, human rights violating political system, Capricorn, died, Scorpio. And we can go back and there's a long list of Uranus-Aquarius-related surprises. The stock market crash of 1929, the Great Depression, World War II, a lot of these things. We can go back and around the globe find so many surprises that Uranus and Aquarius have been involved in. So how do we frame this particular thing that just popped into the headlines in the last 48 hours? How do we frame this one up? And let's take it one other realistic step forward, too. if you and I are not affected by many of these things, how do we hold that compassionately as we observe those who have and try to do as much as we can, either energetically or physically, to help them? Because one of the things that is coming ahead with this new dynamic that we entered yesterday is definitely investing in others more than ourselves. Well, one thing we can do is pray. And I know that gets to be such a cliche, but remember the near-death experience people tell us, oh, your prayers are heard on the other side. So pray. The other thing we can do is intend, the power of intention. And if you want to take that up a step, you can even make it a command, where you put your intention into basically a command out to the universe, to the ethers, as a co-creator. As a co-creator in my divine right, I command... ... And then obviously we talk about it all the time. You can send love. It's the highest emotion. When you say, oh, I can't really help in this situation, if you constantly hold the space of love, I think we are doing far more than we realize. It's just not recognized in the human constraint. But boy, think about if it is on the non-physical. What can we not do? Well, that list is obvious. We can't pick up the phone and call these world leaders and tell them to stop it. We can't issue military orders. Don't you wish we could? It'd be a lot. Stuff would happen right now, wouldn't it? But the other thing is, let's not go to fear over that which we cannot control. In other words, don't offset that love you just sent with fear over something you just read. Stay in the high vibe and send that out all day long. And that's a game plan for this whole 20 years, because remember, this wobbly planet sitting way out there is now paired up with that one that's way out there, 3.3 billion miles, and they're going to be together doing surprising things over the next 20 years. So we might as well have a good game on, right? I love you. Big hug. Thanks for listening through this. I think it's just significant that we address it. All right, we enter Sag season tomorrow. We'll talk about that and some things coming up through the weekend as well. Have a great day. See you back tomorrow.